Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Mireille Nicole here, relationship coach. In today's video, I'm sharing with you a training I did on my Facebook page all about how to identify your blind spots in love. All right, I am so excited to be here. Let me know if you are jumping on live, say hello. If you are watching the replay, give me a hashtag replay. Let me know you're here. I'm so excited for this training. Like I said, I've been doing these live videos and recording a lot of video trainings for my Women in Happily Ever After bootcamp, but I wanted to come on here and share kind of like a training with you guys today also. It wasn't meant to be a training, but I might throw some little elements of a training in there for you. So I am so happy to be here. Let me just make sure. I've been having tech issues all morning, like I was sharing in my bootcamp. I'm trying to fix the layout in my office and I just haven't landed on it yet. So like my mic is kind of throwing me off here, being right there in my face, on the side of my face, but we'll just have to go with it. And actually my mouse has randomly stopped working this morning. So hopefully that does not happen here today. I'm just gonna scroll, okay, make sure I can see everything. So today's training is called Love is Not Blind. And of course I had to do a play on words with the series Love is Blind. I don't know if anyone else is binge watching that on Netflix, but of course I did, I am. I just can't help it. I just justify it by saying this is market research for me, right? As a relationship coach, I need to be aware of what's going on, right? Even these experiments on reality TV, just so important marketing research information for myself. So had to use this play on words, but I'm throwing in Love is Not Blind. And I don't mean this by love is blind, not blind in terms that it does have to do with physical appearance, because it does not, right? Let me just make sure that is loud and clear. I bet you can think of a lot of gorgeous celebrity people who have the biggest relationship challenges and some of the most complicated love lives, right? This has nothing to do with appearances. But what I do mean by love is not blind is that love is not blind in the sense that an amazing, fulfilling relationship is found when you're no longer stuck in your blind spots. Right? Once you can clearly see the unintentional beliefs and unconscious behaviors playing out in your love life, your relationship problems start melting away. Not to say you'll never have challenges come up or whatnot, but you will be really well equipped and you'll know what to do, right? You'll become more confident in your love life. So just maybe a few examples for you. So your blind spots might look or sound something like this. I'm working on myself right now so I can attract from the level where I'm at. Or our biggest challenge as a couple is communication. Or I've tried everything, he won't change, and I'm about to throw in the towel because he's probably a narcissist. And oh boy, that last one's probably gonna get me in trouble for saying that. But stay with me though. You'll understand as we go through this training. And just a heads up, if there are any nasty comments around that, I'm going to delete them this time, right? Like I don't tolerate that in my relationship, just like I don't tolerate it in my business. I will accept all comments that are growth oriented and genuine, of course, right? Because I want to have that conversation. I want to have that debate, but let's do it in a loving way, right? This is all about love and relationships. Okay, cool. Got that out of the way. And going back though to those beliefs or those examples of blind spots I just shared, those are totally legit. I'm not discounting those or minimizing those or saying those aren't an issue, because maybe they're even true, right? And they're probably undoubtedly part of your love puzzle. But in my experience and what I've seen through my work with women, there's likely more to it than that. And this is what this training is going to be all about, seeing the holistic picture of your relationship. So it's more than simply working on yourself. That's an important aspect for sure. It's more than just communication. That is huge. That's the number one thing I hear from women that I talk to, right? And it's more than diagnosing and labeling your man, obviously. And today I'm going to share with you a tool I've created to help you identify what you might be currently blind to. So this is going to be great. Hopefully, like I said, I don't have any tech difficulties, and I wanted to do this fancy screen share thing so I could show you my diagram, but I'm going to go super low tech because I haven't figured that out. And like I said, the tech is all over the place today. So let me preface this training by saying it's not about blame, shame, guilt, or judgment. This is all about awareness and information. So I invite you to receive it in that way. And when you learn this tool, when you apply it to yourself, you're going to get to know exactly what next steps to take to turn your relationship into your happily ever after, or just your love life, right? In general, this is going to help you no matter where you're at. I'm going to talk about this in very general terms, but if you'd like to have an experience with me going through this tool based on you and your personal experience, just reach out to me in the DMs, right? After watching this. It's totally complimentary. We can go over this and see what's happening in your love life and really understanding your blind spots. Now, this tool is going to benefit you if you're currently married or in a relationship. You'll be able to identify what you might be currently blind to that may be causing any tension or issues in your relationship. And this tool is going to help you if you're divorced, single, or dating also. So you'll learn exactly what needs to be in place for you to attract that dream man. And most importantly, because your happily ever after takes more than just magnetizing your Mr. Right. I know this from personal experience. I've talked about it recently and a few times. You'll learn what it takes to keep that spark going once you're past that honeymoon phase. And if you're already with Mr. Right, you'll learn what it takes to rekindle that flame or keep it alive. So one last thing before I reveal this tool, I invite you to make this fun. Let's make this light. Let's make this, exciting, eye-opening, right? This is meant to inspire you, to motivate you, and to lead you to the results that you've been dreaming of, like feeling valued and cherished by your man, being able to communicate your desires and your needs, and finding that passion that maybe you've been lacking, right? So once you can visualize these areas that I'm going to share with you, you're already going to feel so much more empowered and confident. That's what I want for you, right? I want you to be equipped with, and that's the purpose of all these trainings and all my posts that I do, right? I want you to be equipped so you can feel confident and empowered, because when you feel confident and empowered, you're going to feel so much more safe with yourself. You're going to be able to overcome the hurdles, blah, 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 all sorts of things, right? So let's just dive in. I know you're excited to see this tool. It is so fancy. I'm going to show it to you on a piece of paper I printed using very basic elementary Canva. So here you go. Actually, I need to see if you're going to see this. Are you going to see this? So here's my fancy Venn diagram for you. All right. And so there are 3 parts to this Venn diagram. You have the you element, you have the him element, you have the skills element, and the overlap. So the middle part is going to be your happily ever after. And I'm going to talk about each different element in this Venn diagram. All right. So you understand what each of the 3 circles here, what they mean. And we'll talk a little bit about the overlap, and you'll see that sometimes maybe you have this overlap is great, or this, oh gosh, I'm doing this backward. It's complicated. This overlap is great, or the bottom 2 elements overlaps are great, right? But we want to get you to a place where you're in that perfect middle intersection of the 3. And that's what's going to create your happily ever after. Oh my God, here goes my tech. All right, so number 1 was you. This first element we're going to talk about is all about you and putting yourself first. And honestly, I'm saying that, but regardless of the other 2 bubbles I put up there, those 2 circles, the whole tool is about you at the end of the day, right? It's all about putting yourself first, because understanding him, so that him element we're going to talk about, is going to benefit you. Learning the skills is going to benefit you, right? So, but the key here is you want to put yourself first and use all these elements actually from the lens of being in your swoon-worthy, awe-inspiring relationship. And that's often the missing piece. I see a lot of women focus on the first part we're going to talk about, is focusing on you and not realizing so much that the other 2 elements need to be solidly in place too, either solidly in place or also, you should also be working towards, right? I encourage you to also work towards those other 2, because that's when everything makes sense in the relationship, right? Because sometimes you can be putting yourself first and he doesn't respond. And then you think, well, he's a butthole, but, and he could be, but at the same time, maybe all the work that you're doing on yourself is pushing him away because it's not being done from the perspective of how it also applies to him in a relationship, because it's all about you, but at the same time, you're in a relationship and we want to respect the other person and we want to keep that dynamic that comes into play into mind. All right. So like I said, if you put yourself first and all you do is focus on you, it's a great way to get yourself in a relationship with yourself, right? AKA single, or maybe still with someone, but it's like you're leading separate lives, or like I said, you're pushing them away. So you want to keep the man and the relationship in the back of your mind also. And another reason you want to balance out these three elements I'm sharing with you today is because you never want to swing too far in one direction or the other direction, right? You don't want to focus too much on the man either, right? Because that's when you end up losing yourself in the relationship. Can you relate to that? Or do you know someone who's lost themselves in a relationship before? I can totally relate to that. Or if you focus maybe too much on the skills, then you risk becoming really robotic and the attraction is gone. So you want to do all three elements. So let's talk about the you part first, the fun part. It's all about you, right? So number one, I'm going to share the first thing I want to share about, and there are more elements to the you part, but to keep this training in a manageable time frame, we're going to talk about three elements. So number one, you want to be clear with your vision, right? What did you dream about as a little girl when it comes to your happily ever after? Did you dream about that wedding? What did you dream, your man would be like, your relationship? What would you do together? Would you travel the world? What did that look like for you? I often share my teenage obsession with Mr. Darcy in the BBC series or the BBC version of Pride and Prejudice, right? But if you're more dogmatic, right, what was on your dating checklist? And I'm always cautious when I talk about a dating checklist because I often see women and experience that personally, where you have this checklist and then you find that person, you're in the relationship with that person and you're like, oh, okay, well, something's still missing, right? So when I talk about the checklist, I want it to be clear. I just want you to make sure that you also focus on the feelings that you want to experience, right? You want it to elicit some emotions inside of you, right? It's not just a checklist, because then you'll get that checklist and you're like, what the heck? How do I return this? Don't mean to make that lightly, but like I said, let's make this fun, all right? So to help with building this vision, I like to guide my women through what I call the intimacy wheel, right? We won't go through this today, but I'm actually working on an ebook for that. So stay tuned. You'll be able to download soon. Don't have a date yet, this intimacy wheel workbook, and that'll help you kind of envision what you're picturing as your happily ever after, what your vision is going to be. All right. So I want you to be clear. Really think about what that looks like for you, what your happily ever looks like for you, all right? Number two in the whole you category is a huge one. It's going to be big. It's not going to surprise you. It's the self-care. This refers to the things that you do, the behaviors, the actions that you take to show yourself love. This is huge, huge. And by that, like I share with my ladies in Happily Ever After Boot Camp, this is beyond, taking the bubble baths, the glass of red wine, or eating, this fancy chocolate of some sort, just having that piece of chocolate cake, right? Those are great. And as a wonderful coach I follow says, those are treats. Those are treats that give you that quick dopamine fix, right? And they're fine as a reward for doing the more profound self-care work, all right? But you want to do self-care from the perspective, and the way I like to describe self-care is that it's taking responsibility for the different components of your life and your being, right? For example, self-care is taking responsibility for your happiness, for your emotions, for your finances, for your career, for your health, for your spirituality, for your relationship, obviously, right? So when you're focusing on self-care, I invite you to look at the different facets, right? More than just, going out for a facial, that's great. Get that dopamine fix. Keep yourself motivated on that journey. But it's also about looking at what's going on in my life that's making me maybe unhappy. If you're unhappy, right? What are the things I'm avoiding? And why am I avoiding those things? What is something I could do to address that? And I don't mean this in an overwhelming way, right? It's all about taking bite-sized pieces. This is all about awareness, like I said, and then moving into the action. But the action can be small bite-sized pieces. So I invite you to look at, when you're taking about self-care, look at the bigger picture, right? Bigger. And like I said, when you start I said the treats will give you the dopamine, right? But when you start really doing the self-care and then taking the self-responsibility and taking small actions maybe to improve your finances, right? That's when you start getting into the serotonin, the long-term chemicals. So there's science behind this, right? Behind the things I will teach and share with you, there's research, there's science. That's going to be the serotonin is going to be the feel good, the more long-term feel-good chemical in your brain that's going to keep you motivated and that's going to transform your life also, right? So think of that. And when I say finances, self-responsibility, what does that have to do with love, right? That all has to do with love, right? It has to do with you, how you're taking care of yourself and being independent too. That's all going to have this amazing ripple effect into your love life. And I know I'm going way large here, way bigger than I want to for this training, but keep that in mind. I encourage you for that self-care. Look beyond, look at all the different aspects of your life. Where could you be moving the dial a little bit more? How's that going to help you in your relationship? That's going to make you more confident. It's going to make you more self-sufficient. It's going to make you more magnetic. It's going to make you more attractive, right? And then it's going to have that ripple effect. And the last thing I wanted to share in terms of the U bubble in the Venn diagram is looking at your feminine energy. So I'm going to wrap up this component of the Venn diagram with just like a quick note again on feminine energy. This is probably something you hear a lot about. And I see it a lot and I experience it myself, right? So if you're a high achieving and mostly independent woman like me, this can be a tough one. And I say mostly independent because I've been independent all my life. And then I've been in relationships where I just became totally dependent, right? But I say this, and that's no good either. You don't want to get to that point either. But the goal here, especially if you've been in that masculine energy a lot in life, in your career maybe, and it's being, transferred, or it just like slides into, makes its way into your relationship, what you really want to work on doing is to soften up, but while staying empowered. And that's the goal. Right? So how do we do things? And the first place, and one of the first things I teach my ladies in Happily Ever After boot camp is to reconnect with their feelings. A lot of times, especially again, if you're like a high achieving woman, you're going to be fixated on your goals. You're probably in autopilot. Maybe you are feeling these emotions, but you're just like plowing through them because you really have these high ambitions, right? I want to get you to a place where you can reconnect with these and you can actually leverage these because your emotions, your feelings, and sometimes we block them, right? We've had past traumas, we still feel a lot of hurt and pain inside, and we're trying to push these emotions away, but really feeling them, really processing them is going to actually be super beneficial in your relationships. I think I uploaded maybe a reel on here recently, right? Where, like I was saying, men are super attracted to your emotions. So you don't have to fear your emotions in your love life. It's going to be one of your greatest tools. It can be one of your greatest tools. So I said I would turn this into a training a little bit. So I'm going to give you homework, a little bit of homework in terms of reconnecting with your feelings, because I love talking about this and it's part of the U bubble in this Venn diagram. I'm going to encourage you to, for the next week, write down your emotions every day. Keep track of what's coming up for you, whether it's positive, whether it's negative. And again, like I said earlier, don't judge, don't shame yourself. It's not about that at all. That's not the point. I just want you to notice and write it down, right? And reflect and see what kind of insight can you get from this exercise, right? Your feelings lead to actions, your actions lead to results, and to the results you're getting. Right? So if we're not in a place where we want to be, it's always going to be beneficial to look at your feelings. I mean, it goes deeper with that. I'm not going through the whole process of that, but an important window into what's going on is going to be your emotions, your feelings. So ponder that. All right. So number two, second thing we're going to talk about here. Let's go into the him. We're going to go into the him component or element. All right, so this part, the him part and the skills part, gets me super excited because it's often one of the missing pieces I often see, or something that's not talked about so much, right? And everyone and their dog is talking about, putting yourself first and healing, and rightfully so, because a lot of women struggle there. No, I feel a lot of women get stuck there. And what excites me is to help women move out of that phase, right? When they're ready and when they're doing the work, and as they're doing the work, and like I share, you don't have to finish. There's no destination for your healing. You don't wait to finish all your healing. You'll want to get to a certain place, obviously, but then you can move over to the him and the relationship skills also. And that's actually going to help accelerate things. it's going to help move things even faster, because when you start moving in those other two areas, that's when you start seeing results. And when you start seeing results and you start changing your experience, that's when your beliefs start changing. That's when your feelings start changing, and your actions and the result in your whole experience. And that's how you can heal, right? Once you start having a different experience, that's going to help solidify your healing process. All right. So, like I said, putting yourself first is super important, but you're in a relationship with another person. And I believe and have experienced for myself the ripple effect of working on you. But remember, like I said, you're also either in or striving towards a relationship with your dream man. And I know this can be super annoying, right? I find this part, I'm always careful when I talk about it, because it can be super annoying to hear, to focus on your man. Because a lot of you might feel like it's all been on you in your relationship, right? Like you're the one putting all the effort into your union, right? Or you're pulling most of the weight in the relationship. You're the one maybe walking on eggshells. You're the one putting your needs aside to keep the peace and avoid arguments. Maybe you're putting in more than just your share in the relationship, and you wished he was showing, just as much commitment as you were, or maybe you're tolerating things to avoid an argument, or maybe you're the one reorganizing your whole life to support whatever's going on with him in the hopes that that shifts his mood and that makes things better. And this was me actually in my current relationship before we were married, when things weren't going so well. At the time, we had his youngest daughter 1 week on, 1 week off, and she went to school about 30 minutes away from our house. I think I've shared this story before, but or maybe you haven't heard it. So there was a lot of driving during the week. And that's when things were kind of tense in our relationship. And I didn't have the tools and the resources I'm sharing with you now. So my first instinct was to try to help out, right? So I started telling and offering up, well, I can go drive her in the morning. I can go maybe just mornings or afternoons, or I'll do it half the week. And I thought this would be super helpful to him. So we started, trying it out. And, I was waiting to see, okay, does this remove some stress from him? Does this make things better for us? It did the total opposite. It did the total opposite. And when you understand men, it becomes crystal clear why. So this is why I feel like it's so important for you to also increase your understanding of the man, because you might be putting stuff on yourself that doesn't need to be there in the hopes that it makes things better, because you're not quite clear on the dynamic, right? So just by removing that, it can help things get better. So like I said, when I stopped helping, it contributed to our relationship getting so much better, which sounds like the opposite, right? Like I stopped doing the driving altogether. Like, you deal with it. Obviously, I did this in a loving way, and I teach my women how to communicate things specifically. But I also use this example, right? Because so many women, like I said, and you might be one too, are concerned that working on your relationship or focusing on him means more work for you. Well, like I said, most of the time it's the opposite. Just like in my example about the school drop off, right? It's not about doing more things. It's about doing things smarter and more intentionally instead of doing more, right? So I want you to be reassured of that. And also, I've shared this before again, research shows that 80% of the time it's women bringing up the relationship challenges, right? And this is actually our superpower, personal development, wanting to work on things. It's actually a very feminine energy, so most of the times it's going to be us, right? So anyways, I just threw that in there so you're not alone. It's normal. But at the same time, know that bringing up these challenges and understanding the man does not mean more work for you. Bottom line, that's what I want you to know for this section. And actually, I just realized I totally skipped over what I mean by him in this Venn diagram or focusing on the man. And I kind of hinted to it actually. What I mean is understanding the masculine energy, his specific values, right? Doing what you think he wants, like what I thought would help with the school drop-offs, right, can be a trap. And so here's what I want you to get clear on for this area, right? You're going to want to get yourself some basic knowledge of the masculine values, and at a minimum, the basics. Otherwise, you're going to keep spinning in circles and not getting what you desire, not getting your needs met. You might be doing way too much work, right? Like I did. And also, like I said earlier too, you risk pushing him away when you're not working on your relationship also with the lens of him and what drives him and what motivates him. You might just be pushing him away. You're doing all this great work on yourself. You're awesome, but you also want to know how to apply that for him. Otherwise, you push him away. And I've shared many times how I attracted my dream man and then almost lost him, right? And a big part of it is because I didn't understand him at that level and didn't have the skills too, which is why I always get excited to share about this. But thankfully, I learned what actually moves the needle in love, what makes the man really fall in love, feel bonded, and crave intimacy with a woman. And then when that happened, my whole relationship shifted, right? And the irony is I started doing less, started doing a lot less, but the things that actually move the needle. All right, so like I said, women often have the impression that they have to do more, and that keeps them stuck or resistant towards trying a new approach in love. So I really invite you to maybe even if you're listening to this right now and it's kind of like turning you off, I invite you to just sit with it, just marinate with this, and really see what comes up with you as you think about it from that perspective, right? I'm here to challenge your current perceptions. That's why if I write something down that might trigger you at first or sound offensive, I'm inviting you to just open up a little bit and shift, what's going on in your mind, because that's often where you find the solution. So, all right, I'm just checking here to make sure I've said everything I wanted to say about the him element, right? It's about doing less, but being very intentional about what you do. And like I said, most of us are winging it. I was winging it for the longest time. Most of us aren't taught about romantic relationships. Some of us didn't have the best role models. Some of us had no role models either, right? So, and listening to your bestie Betsy's well-meaning advice, right, isn't the solution here. It's not the solution. She's awesome. Keep chatting with her. That's an important thing I talk about too, your social circle and chatting with your girlfriends. But hey, when it comes to actually, fixing what's going on, let's go with like the research and the science here. All right, so the last element, we're going to talk about the skills. Let's talk about the skills. And the skills just really bring together the you and the him part. Oh, I hit my mic. The you and the him part that I talked about at the beginning. It just brings it all together. And we want to use these skills really deliberately in how you interact to really honor each other. So once you really understand you and what you desire, once you understand him and what motivates you, you can start applying the skills in a way that like I said, honors both of you and both of what you desire and what really makes you click and whatnot, right? So I'm gonna be honest here, I had none of these skills. I had none of these skills when I was in relationships, right? I might have done some of these things accidentally or blindly, which is why sometimes like it would work out and I would get my needs met, but other times I wouldn't, and I'd be like totally baffled, like why did this work with this man, not with this man? Like how come I did this now and my husband reacted good, but I did this and it didn't go good. Like, I feel like that's where a lot of times the confidence diminishes in the relationship, because when you don't know, you can't feel confident about it, right? So learning to master these proven and researched relationship skills is where you really start becoming like confident and you're powerful in your love life. And like I said, the reason you feel insecure is going to be because you feel, and that you might feel disappointment is often because you're not confident in what you're doing. And then when the fear starts melting away. I'm just being repetitive, but sometimes you need to hear it a lot for it to sink in, right? I read the stat somewhere. I read the stat. It just seems like outrageous to me, but it was something like you need to hear something 200 times to learn it or for it to sink in or something like that. I was just blown away. I'm like, I'm just going to repeat myself all the time. I guess that's why it works to just listen to things over and over again, right? That makes sense now. Listen to something 200 times. Watch this video 200 times. No, don't do that. Take notes. So yeah, watch it again after. Take notes. So when you know how to communicate effectively with your man, for example, that would be one of the skills. You don't walk on eggshells anymore. There's no more resentment because you know how to speak your mind without worrying about starting an argument, right? And if you do mess up or you get thrown off for whatever reason, you know how to pick yourself up again, right? So that's the beauty of it. That's where the confidence comes from. When you know these skills, you understand the man and you understand you, of course, you become confident because you can see what threw things off. You know how to repair it. And you know that it's not all lost. Like obviously, you know, some relationships are unsalvageable, of course, go through these elements and really, you know, unless there's like one of the 3 A's in there, abuse, addiction, adultery, that's a whole different game. We're not talking about that here. Some of these elements will apply to some of those A's, maybe, but you know, this will help you, give you clarity when it comes to that. All right. So I'm going to share a couple skills that I share with my women in Happily Ever After bootcamp, or just in my world, whether it's one of my group programs or my one-on-one containers, private coaching. Let's just talk about a couple of them just really quickly here. Number one of the most important skills obviously is going to be asking for what you want. And this is just so foundational. And this is usually one of the first skills I actually teach. Often we don't know how to ask for what we need, so we avoid it, maybe because we've been disappointed in the past, or it caused an argument, or we get all worked up about it and we just, you know, we're just not harnessing our emotions, or we're not just leveraging them or mastering them, and we just blurt it out. We just blurt out what we want, and then our man gets super defensive maybe, and it gets turned around on us. And you know, you end up not getting what you want in either situation, whether you don't ask, whether you ask just how you think or how you're emotionally reacting, you're not going to get what you want. So how do you ask in a way that honors how you and how you feel and what you need, okay, while also doing it in a way that honors him and makes him want to do it. So these are the components, right? You guys are two people. It's like a ping pong game here. You want to play that game and be proficient at it. And it's a fun game, and it's a fulfilling game. It's a satisfying game. It's not a manipulative game by any stretch of the imagination. This is for both of you, all right? So, and then the next level, what you want even more, and one of the fun outcomes of the approach, right, and the skills, is that it leads him to start doing these in the future without you having to ask. And like I said, that's the ultimate goal here. This is what you want to get to, because there's nothing more annoying, right, than having to ask a million times for something, or your husband or your boyfriend not manning up or doing his part. And there's nothing more pointless than expecting or waiting for him to read your mind. That's just never going to work. Well, I shouldn't say never. It's going to work, right? Because once you start, I talk about this with my ladies in bootcamp too, right? Once you start using these skills, the mirror neurons kick in, and then he starts doing these things naturally too, right? Monkey see, monkey do. Remember that saying? I know that can be a really annoying saying, but hey, it's a great way to illustrate it too, right? And honestly, it just doesn't feel good to hold it all in, right? When you're not communicating your needs, you're not asking for what you want. In fact, there's plenty of scientific research that points to actual health impacts, right? Health conditions that are due to you keeping things tucked in. All right, so the second skill that I wanted to talk about, number 2, is how to argue in a way that strengthens your bond as a couple. And there's a whole art to the argument. I'm actually working on it's probably going to be a free 3-day training. I haven't narrowed down all the details yet, but so I won't talk about it too much here, this whole art of the argument, but stay tuned. There's going to be something coming out about that. And I also have multiple trainings related to this in Happily Ever After Bootcamp. So if you have any questions about that, jump in my DMs and feel free to ask, all right? But what I will say about arguments is they can be a fantastic occurrence in your relationship, right? When you understand the approach to take going into them, when you know how to navigate the tricky parts, like during the argument, and then when you become skilled at ending the argument and what happens after, you'll start noticing that your arguments actually build a stronger bond between the two of you. And you might find actually great satisfaction from these spats. And when my man and I were in this more, we'll call it the fragile part of our relationship, right? I had found this video from Abraham Hicks, and I wanted to I wanted to find the link for this for you guys, and I totally forgot. I apologize. You might be able to Google it just search it in YouTube and find it. But this is what Esther was talking about, right? She was talking about how just as humans, right, we thrive on satisfaction and growth, right? And when you can navigate arguments with your man and come out on the other side, that's going to be one of the most satisfying things. I should say one of the most satisfying things. It's going to be it's going to be a satisfying thing in your relationships. You guys can feel like you guys can overcome things, because there's always going to be challenges and tests coming your way as you walk through life together, right? So when you can really navigate these arguments, it's just going to increase the satisfaction, the bond, and the intimacy between the two of you. So I highly recommend that you watch it. You find it. If I find it, I'll post it somewhere. All right. So if your man's open to watching it, go for it. Otherwise, just watch it for yourself. It's not super long. And again, this is not meant to be more work or time consuming, just a quick video. But one of the things too, another reason this is important is I remember just going back to this whole idea of being concerned about working on your relationship, just taking more time, effort. You don't have the energy right now. You have a lot going on. You have a busy career. Maybe you're a mom, right? When my man and I were in our fragile state, again, I should say, we would argue for hours. It would take us forever to hash things out and whatnot. And ever since really working on these skills, we are so much more productive and efficient. It's weird to use those terms for an argument, but we get through things so much faster. So it's not more work for us. It's actually, again, it's just more intentional, and we're just arguing smarter now, right? Think of it that way. All right, so the intersection of these three things that I just talked about, I can't see myself here. The intersection of these three is going to be your happily ever after relationship, all right? So maybe you notice that you're good at understanding yourself. Maybe you understand him pretty good, but the skills might not be in place, right? Maybe that's your blind spot. Maybe that's your gap, maybe that's where love is blind for you in your relationship. Or maybe you're good understanding him and you got the skills, but you're totally neglecting yourself. You totally lost who you are. You don't know what your identity is anymore. Maybe you're good, at yourself. You're really putting a lot of emphasis on yourself, and you've got some good communication skills, but it's not necessarily through the lens of what really gets him going. So again, that could be your blind spot. We want to be in this intersection of the three, right? So let me see here if there was anything else. I think I talked a little bit about the intercepts here, right? So maybe you have just one intercept, you know you really well, but your man, there might be a gap in the skills. You have some of the skills, but they're not being applied with the nuance of what resonates with your man. Or maybe a lot of what's being pushed out there. Like I said in the beginning, just to come full circle on that, you're really focusing on you, but maybe not enough on him and the skills so much, right? So heck, and maybe all you need is to focus on you, right? Because maybe, and some people will say that. I had a comment the other day, she's like, I just worked on myself and everything's opposite in my relationship. Yes, that is totally possible. And you could be really naturally good and intuitive in terms of what he wants and with the skills already. And maybe all you need to is focus on you, right? But if you're doing that and you're still not where you want to be in your relationship, that's why I encourage you to look at the other two aspects. So here's a little bit of work for this training. I'm going to wrap this up soon. Right? I encourage you to go through these three areas. I should post this somewhere, right? Maybe I'll put this in the comments or something. I'll put the file there so you have it. So really ask yourself, okay, number one, what am I missing? Just be honest with yourself. What area am I maybe not as familiar with or haven't worked on as much, right? What are my blind spots? What are my gaps? Where am I blind in love? Like I was saying, what areas have you not focused on yet? So really think of those questions, journal on these, meditate on these if you like, really start thinking about that, right? And when I say you probably haven't tried everything to change your man or save your relationship, it's because, like I said, I often see a gap in one of those areas, right? And yes, like I've said a million times, I'll say it again, there are narcissistic men out there and there are unsalvageable relationships in the world. I just encourage you, again, to make sure you've addressed all these areas before you slap on a label or make drastic decisions. Because this will confirm, right? It'll not only confirm what you believe, or really it will really shine a light on this narcissism or toxicity if it's not already obvious in your relationship. But it'll also help you in your next relationship, right? Like, should that be your choice? The work is the same. I say this all the time. The work is the same. Should you stay or should you go in your relationship? The work is the same if you're dating, if you're married, you know, with your dream man already. That's what's great about this work, right? And as you work on your relationship, you apply these skills and this perspective, right? It'll appear as though he's changed, right? So in a way, that's why I love playing on that whole idea of getting your man to change, because it'll look like he changed. And guess what? It'll look like you changed too. So it's not just about changing the man. You change yourself, you change the dynamic, and then it appears as though you've changed. And in certain ways, you've changed, you've gotten better. We all have room for improvement, for growth, no matter who we are, right? No matter who we are, what we've accomplished in life, there's always ways to improve ourselves, even if just at the micro level, all right? So there's one last thing I wanted to share, actually, before I hop off. The last thing I wanted to share is you get to make your love life or current, relationship as easy or as difficult as you want it to be. Again, this ties into this whole, what I was talking about when it comes to, feeling things are harder. It's going to take more work. It's going to take more energy to work on your relationship. You get to decide that. You get to decide to put how much work you put in, how fast you put it in. You get to decide what you do with these skills, with the information you take in, how much, even applying 1 or 2 or 3% of what you learn is going to make shifts, right? It's the whole compound effect. So you have the flexibility, and sometimes you need to take a little break. And then other times, push yourself a little bit more, but it's all within you. It's all within you. I think I shared at some point, right? She, with the relationship challenges, has the solutions. It's all in you. So, all right, I realized 41 minutes, not too bad. I hope this was super helpful to you. I hope it was eye-opening at the same time. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. If you feel called to do this work, you can DM me and we can determine what's the best option for you, what that would look like. Thank you so much for watching.